अस्सलाम वालेकुम आसिफ साहब, कैसे हैं आप?
Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Zain Tariq and I welcome you all to the second episode of Pasha Cybersecurity webinar series. Pasha, as most of you would already know, is a trade association of Pakistan that deals with the software exports और इस पाकिस्तान में सॉफ्टवेयर इंडस्ट्री को प्रमोट करती है. पाशा की कुछ कमिटीज होती हैं जिसको वो ऑपरेट कर रही होती हैं. कुछ सम ऑफ देम आर इंटरनल कमिटीज एंड सम ऑफ देम आर एक्सटर्नल कमिटीज जिनके ऊपर हमारे ऑपरेशंस चल रहे होते हैं. For the first time ever, Pasha's CC members took an opportunity to devise a committee जिसमें उन्होंने cyber security के experts को इकट्ठा किया and they created a Pasha special initiative committee known as Pasha Cyber Security Committee that is working on helping people with the cybersecurity domains in Pakistan. Rather it is with FIA की engagement है या किसी और तरह की engagement है. उसमें आजम भाई हैं and we have other significant members working in the cybersecurity domain जो हमारे members को उसके ऊपर help करते हैं, brief out करते हैं. और उसी की एक extension है that our committee chair realized कि बहुत सारे लोगों को कुछ चीज़ों के बारे में मालूम नहीं होता and they devised a security के ऊपर एक extensive किस्म की series उन्होंने बनाई है जिसके ऊपर साइबर सिक्योरिटी के डिफरेंट टॉपिक्स के ऊपर वी इनवाइट डिफरेंट प्रोफेशनल्स फ्रॉम द इंडस्ट्री और उनके वो हमें आके उसके ऊपर ब्रीफ करते हैं कि किस तरह की कौन से ट्रेंड्स इंडस्ट्री में जिनके ऊपर काम हो रहा है. I welcome Rehan Bashir to the today's session. Rehan, thank you so much for joining. आपका हमने बहुत we understand that it's a different time zone और हम आपका बहुत सुबह सुबह के टाइम पे जगा रहे हैं, but thank you so much for joining. For everyone, Rehan Bashir is based in US and he has agreed to join us today for today's cybersecurity session. Rehan, I would like to hand over the floor to you for a brief introduction from your side. और हम आजम भाई का इंट्रोडक्शन एंड पे करेंगे with some closing remarks as well.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jan. तो ऐसा भी मसला नहीं, मैं सुबह जल्दी ही उठता हूँ. So मेरा नाम रेहान बशीर है. I've been in cybersecurity for about 20 years. Been consultant for all those 20 years and work in both public and private sector in US. So I've started with public sector, doing work with US government initially, then move into private sector, did a lot of work with casinos, healthcare industry, industrial control systems, and then I moved into software security, did that work for about 3 years. And now I'm back again in public sector and doing consulting with government and cybersecurity. So that's a little bit of introduction about me.
Thank you so much, Rehan. हम टाइम ज़्यादा नहीं करते. I would suggest कि आप screen share करें and let's proceed towards the topic that is building security in secure software development is today's topic. I hand over the floor to Rehan.
Thank you very much. Let me know if you all can see my screen.
It's visible.
Okay, awesome.
Visible.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so आज का जो topic जो select किया गया इस episode 2 के लिए cyber security का from Pasha is secure software development. I know we have been all talking about how to secure your networks and how to secure infrastructure. मगर जो software security है उसके बारे में इतनी ज़्यादा लोग नहीं focus होते, नहीं जानते उसके बारे में. So we'll talk about that today. So what is the software security? So software security is a practice of building software to be secure and to function properly under malicious attack. That's simple as it is. कि आपने एक सॉफ्टवेयर डिजाइन किया है, आपने वो सॉफ्टवेयर चाहे अपनी कंपनी के लिए डिजाइन किया है या अपने क्लाइंट्स के लिए डिजाइन किया है, जैसे ही वो सॉफ्टवेयर प्रोडक्शन में जाता है, how good is that software when it comes to defending against hackers, right? So secure software का जो idea है, it's not an old idea, it's an old idea. It started back in 90s. And actually, Microsoft ने इसको introduce करवाया था through a memo called now, which is known as Gates memo. just where they were talking about how much vulnerabilities and updates they have to release as part of the Microsoft operating system, but they need to reduce that number of updates. They need to reduce that number of vulnerabilities in operating system. So there's a very popular Gates memo that came out in 2020 that kind of changed the direction of software security back in the days. If you want to look it up, just Google Gates memo, and you can see that memo, how Bill Gates talked about software security and gave directions to its engineers on how to write secure software. So it has, so now in the past few years, this has gained a lot of momentum, software security. A lot of companies, whether it be financial companies, federal government, pharmaceutical companies, banks, they are now very much focused on secure software development practices, as it was not as much before. So what are the three things that contribute to growing problem of software security? So we all know we are very much connected. We all know we extend our softwares with mobile code. We all know that software is getting complex every day, with cloud, with APIs, with new modern platforms of development. Developing a software is a complex thing, and softwares are getting more and more complicated. So by connectivity, I mean is that we all are connected, through APIs or through other means. We are communicating, software are communicating with each other. So the more they are communicating with each other, the more risk there is to the software itself. So these are the main three factors that software security is extremely important these days. So why is it essential now? So we live in a software world. You talk about cars, you talk about planes, you talk about medical equipment, you talk about financial industry. Everywhere you see, there is software, right? Look at Tesla. Tesla is basically a software-driven car. You sit in a Tesla, you have a screen, and the whole car is, controlled with software. You get over-the-air updates in the car itself, just like a computer. So it's a computer on wheels, runs with software. Now imagine the software in Tesla malfunctions for whatever reason. It got hacked for whatever reason. Think of the issues that it can create for the driver and the passengers in the car if somebody hacked that car and make the car do the things that car is not supposed to do. So it may cause injury, it may cause death to the passengers or to the driver of that vehicle. Same goes with industrial control systems, where you have SCADA systems where software is running. Imagine a hacker hacking into those systems, exploiting the software vulnerabilities, taking it over the electric grid, taking over the water distribution facilities. Those are the risks now that are with the software, and it has real consequences in life. So why we need software development? Because we need to establish confidence that software will work as intended and will stand against malicious attacks. So that is the main purpose of secure software. All right. So looking at the software vulnerability landscape, there are, if anyone of you are familiar with OWASP has every year they come up with top 10 most common software vulnerabilities. And for last year, the top 10 most common software vulnerabilities that OWASP came up with are listed over here, which is insufficient logging and monitoring. Your software is running, but nobody is logging how the software is operating. Nobody's monitoring the operations of software, right? If a hacker is hacking into your software, nobody's looking into that. So that's one of the common software issues. Our software is not designed to log those events. sensitive data exposure. And right now in US and in all other, other countries, PII data, personal identify information, is stored in a software. Imagine you have a bank, you're running their app on your phone, and you have your financial transactions in that application. You have your bank account information, which is sensitive to you, which is very personal to you, and we do not want to expose that information. But if the software security controls are not properly built in, maybe encryption is not there, or a weak encryption is there within the software, that may result in a sensitive data exposure. Authentication is broken. What that means is that you are able to access privileged area of the software by bypassing the username and password or any other authentication mechanism that is in place. So that is broken authentication. Broken access control. Access control is what a person can do once they are within the software, right? Within an application. So you are a regular user, but you may now have access to an admin part of the software. Security misconfigurations. That is one of the most common issues these days that we are seeing in the industry as well. That there are security misconfigurations. Things are not set up properly. Your infrastructure is misconfigured. Let me give you an example. A lot of hacks that happened in the past, in the recent past, was because of security misconfiguration of an S3 bucket in AWS cloud, because somebody just forgot to put a password on S3 bucket with a public access, and an S3 bucket is storing sensitive information of people in there. So cross-site scripting, these are old techniques that, like injection flaws, that still to this day are available in the software. So these are some of the most common software vulnerabilities that we see today, every day in the industry. You think that now with the new frameworks, with the new security built into the development frameworks, we have reduced the vulnerability, but that is really not the case. Very basic things get exploited in the wild. One example, recent example, that one of the biggest threat that happened in 2022 was SolarWinds, software supply chain attack. So that's another type of attack that is very common these days. If this gets, materialized, it has a devastating effect. So SolarWinds is an American company which designs network monitoring software. And they have this platform called Orion platform. It got compromised in 2020, with 18,000 customers that were using this platform also got compromised. So what is a supply chain attack? So think of it that you are getting a supply of a software from a company, and that supply of the software got hacked, and that supply could be updates to the software. So you're running a software, you're depending upon your vendor to supply the updates, and that pipeline got hacked. And that's exactly what happened in SolarWinds. So a hacker back in 2022 was able to distribute malicious code as he hacked into the SolarWinds network and was able to exploit the code pipeline with the malicious code. And when the customer of Orion, SolarWinds company, downloaded the latest update from the SolarWinds website or SolarWinds from the vendor, that malicious code got distributed to 18,000 customers, making all those 18,000 customers vulnerable. And that is an example of supply chain attack. So you infected the source, and everybody who is getting the updates from that source get infected. So that attacker managed to modify Orion platform that is distributed as part of Orion platform update, right? And initial investigation of this incident suggested that there was a default password. Again, it goes back to security misconfigurations. Basic thing. Hacker was able to first compromise the SolarWinds network. He was then able to go into the development pipeline he was then able to inject a malicious code in the development pipeline of SolarWinds Orion platform, which then get distributed to all of its customers. So that was a big deal back in 2022. So the recent Gartner statistic is that by 2025, 45% of the organization worldwide will have experienced attacks on their software supply chain, and it will increase threefold from 2021. So it is not going away. It is there. We just need to be really vigilant as a developer of the software, as to make sure we use security best practices when we are developing those softwares for our clients, for our own companies, and make sure that we consider these security in the development process. And we'll talk about this later in the slide deck. So let's take a quick look at the SolarWinds attack timeline. So as you can see that in September of 2019, the threat actor actually accessed SolarWinds network. Then what happens is that on September 12, 2019, the threat actor injects test code and begin trial runs. In November of 2019, the test code injection end. The hacker was able to inject all the code within the development pipeline, software development pipeline of SolarWinds Orion platform. In February of 2022, Sunburst was the name of the malware, compiled itself and deployed. And then what happens is that in March of 2020, that hotfix was available for customers who were using that Orion platform from SolarWinds to download the hotfix. Unknown to the hacker, unknown to the clients, unknown to the SolarWinds itself, that malware got distributed to its 18,000 customers. And what happens is, with that distribution of malware to 18,000 customers, now hacker has access into those 18,000 customers' environment through that code that was distributed to those customers through SolarWinds security updates or hotfix. So, and then the timeline follows, and it's a lot of government organizations, a lot of large banks, a lot of other financial institutions were using this Orion platform to manage their network. Now, all of them were impacted and were vulnerable to attack. So that was as an example of software supply chain, attack. And these type of attacks are very sophisticated, and you can see these type of attacks does not work alone. Hacker first need to log in into the network of Orion, SolarWinds, and was able to inject the code into the development pipeline. And that's where the software and the security of the development pipeline, just best practices, comes into play, which normally organizations do not have. So looking at the software, average bounty paid worldwide in 2020 by industry in US dollars is through computer softwares. So $5,780 is an average bounty that is paid by the industry. And I'm sure you are familiar with bug bounty program, where these organizations hire external hackers and let them, hack into their software to find, or application to find bugs and issues. And in return, they pay the hacker or a bug bounty hunter some reward. So as you can see that, 5,780 is an average amount in 2020 paid by industries to various bug bounty hunters to find issues in their software, to avoid any malicious attacker to exploit that vulnerability. So how do we secure our software? So what can we do as a developers, as a programs that are running in an organization, or if you're developing a software for your client as a consultant? I'm sure in Pakistan, a lot of software houses are developing software for their international clients. They are solving their problems, but are you developing secure software? Once your software goes out and deploys on client side, do you feel confident that your software will stand against malicious attacks? Have you followed best security practices when you are, when you have developed that software? So I'm sure as a software engineer, as a software developer, you have heard of system development lifecycle, which is a very simple process where you do the requirement analysis at the very beginning, then you design something, then you implement, then you test, and then it goes into operation and the cycle continues. And the system development life cycle, there are different methodologies that have been followed over time. When I was 20 years ago, when I was doing my studies and my bachelor's, everybody was talking about waterfall system development lifecycle methodology. Then there are spiral methodology, there are iterative and incremental methodologies, and now everybody talks about agile development. Again, it is a system development lifecycle, but it has different methodologies. So right now here in US, everybody, most of the organizations, I would say 80 to 90% of the organizations have moved towards agile software development lifecycle, which is a very continuous, very constant improvement and constant update of the process. Previously, it was waterfall. Some of the organizations uses a combination of waterfall system development lifecycle methodology and agile system development lifecycle methodology. So this is what a regular system development lifecycle looks, and it could be for any type of development, not only software development. Any process that is happening in your organization, they can follow a system development lifecycle. Now, looking at that system development lifecycle, how can we use this to make it a secure system development lifecycle when it applies to software development processes? So that's what we're going to look at next. So what is a role of SDLC? Let's first understand that. So it provides a standardized framework that defines activities and deliverables. It aids in project planning and estimation and scheduling. So it is a framework, right? It provides a certain methodology for organization to work in. And these are various roles of SDLC, or you can say the advantages of following a certain process. Your process speed, your speed of development increases. It decreases your project management expenses. It makes project tracking and control easier, and everybody knows what is going on in the development process. You can plan accordingly, from inception to all the way to operational and maintenance phase of the cycle. So you kind of bring a method to a madness with SDLC. So that's the whole purpose of this framework. Sorry, Nate. Okay. So as I mentioned that most of the organizations are using agile methodology when it comes to software security and continuous delivery of secure software in their organizations. So agile consists of sprints. It consists of ceremonies, and it's a constant innovation and constant change in the organization. In the development process, it's not dependent on some previous process that process needs to complete first, and only then next step needs to be taken. It's a constant process. And what happens with agile is that things and software are developing in a constant space, in a constant pace, and security of that software is tested at the constant pace. And it's a fast-moving process. There are certain disadvantages that I have seen in the organization when I work with them, and assessing their software's development programs, secure software development programs. The biggest disadvantage of Agile that we have seen so far is that there is less documentation available within the organization about that software, about the processes, because Agile is very focused on hands-on and keep on doing things on a constant basis. So when you're doing things on a constant basis, you focus less on development, on documentation of what you're doing. So that's one of the disadvantages. But overall, Agile is a very effective methodology if applied properly for secure software development. So now take a look at it. It started from analysis, and it goes all the way to the maintenance, and it goes back, and it's a continuous cycle. And if you look at the bottom of each chevron over here, you can see in an organization, whether it be banks or any other big organizations that have their own software development practices in-house, that you in the analysis phase, you have your product owner, project manager, business analyst, and chief technology officers. And when from analysis phase, it moves into the design phase, then the roles that usually work in the design phase are system architects and UX UI designer. And as it moves into development, you have obviously your front-end developers, your back-end developers. And then in testing phase, you have your solution architect, Q engineer, test, and DevOps. And in the development chevron, you can see that you have data administrator and DevOps. And in the maintenance phase, you have users, testers, and support managers. And then there is a feedback loop. In the maintenance phase, it's not like that software goes into the maintenance and it's your job is done. No, that is not the case. There is a continuous feedback loop that goes from maintenance back into analysis and letting the analysis know that, these are the things that we are seeing that are working, and these are the things that are not working, so that they can do a continuous improvement in the software development process. So that's the common theme that I have seen from various organizations that I have engaged with and done their software program assessments. So breaking down that agile security, agile process of continuous software delivery, how is the layer of security goes on top of it. So this slide basically tells you what are the various security touch points you can do in a software development lifecycle, or we call it secure software development lifecycle, SSDLC. So you design the software, you do requirement and use cases. Then an architecture comes in, they do architecture and design. Then a test plan happens. Then developers write the code and they do the testing of the software and the results. And then there is a feedback loop, as you can see. So all the way from requirement to feedback, and then from feedback back to the requirement. And if you see at the bottom, there are different activities, or what I call them security touch points, that happen in each and every phase of the software development. So from the very get-go, from the very start, you have abuse case. So, abuse case is something that you write very methodological approach, where you define what a hacker can do that a normal person do not do when using a software that may break the software. So you write various abuse cases, and then you test those abuse cases against your software. You try to break the software, right? And then you define the security requirements. So how you want to secure the software, how you want to write the secure code, what are the security requirements that a software engineer or a developer needs to incorporate into that software, right? For example, if you're writing a software for a medical industry, you need to make sure proper encryption controls are in place, right? You need to make sure access control and authorization is properly built into that software. You need to make sure that if an attacker somehow get into the software, he's not able to modify the code. He's not able to exploit the code, right? So you define the security requirements, and then requirement and use case and architecture and design phase, you do risk analysis. You look at what are the threat actors. You look at what are the threats to the software based on the type of software you're designing. You look at controls that you're going to implement into the software. So those are various aspects you perform during the risk analysis. And then you do a security testing based on those risks that you have identified for your software. Then, when developers are writing the code, they do code review, and code review can be done via manual process where developers sitting, looking at the code and identifying any issues within the code. I'm sure you all have seen where developers are, writing code and putting passwords or keys in clear text format in the code. That's a bad practice, right? You do not want to write your password, hardcode password in your code, right? So you can detect those technical issues via using a SAS tool, which is static analysis security tools, DAS tools, dynamic analysis security tools, or SCAs, source code analysis tools, right? So there are different type of testing that you can do at the coding level. Then you have test and results. Then you can see what happens when you have done that testing on your code, on your development, and what the results that you're getting. You do another risk analysis on that. Then you do penetration testing. Sorry, do you have any question? Okay, so
you can continue with your presentation and we will take question after your presentation.
Okay. So test and results is something where, when the software is actually running, you do penetration testing on the software. I'm sure you have heard tools like Zap Proxy, Burp Suite, or other application penetration testing tool where, it also engage other penetration testers that do manual testing on your application, web application, other software. So that is the testing that has been done during the runtime of an application or a software. And then on top of that, you have security operations, which is basically your network, your deployment, in cloud environment these days, your DevOps, development and operations, where you have continuous integration and continuous deployment of your software that is happening in your development environment. And then obviously your feedback loop, if you find any issues in any of these phases, it will go back to the requirement and use cases, and those shortcomings and those issues get addressed. So it's a continuous cycle. And these are the things that I have seen in the industry over here, as I've been working very closely in developing these secure software development programs of various industries. So again, when you're talking about security, to summarize that, security in SDLC is more secure software as security is continuous concern. So as you can see in the previous slide, that security was considered in every phase of the development of software, right? So more secure software as security is continuous concern. If organizations are not focused on security and they're considering security as an afterthought, देख लेंगे security बाद में. So then it's very costly and software is not very secure. Awareness of security consideration by stakeholders. I mean, if you're working for your client, you're consulting for your client, they are your stakeholders. They are aware that you as a security conscious developer company or security conscious software developer, you are considering those requirements in delivering a secure software. Another advantage of security SDLC is early detection of the flaws in the system. This is the approach that we call shift left. So if you look at the SDLC that I showed you in the previous slide, the process from left to right? From design to operation and maintenance. So when we say early detection of flaws in the system, we also call it a shift left approach, that you're shifting security left in the pipeline rather than thinking of security towards the very right when the software is in their production. So the shift left approach, which is a very common terminology that is being very popularized in early 90s, is that incorporate security in the early development phase of your software, right? Now that has been changed a little bit. There is a new approach which everybody also call an industry buzzword. It's called shift everywhere. You don't think of security only in left or right in mindset. You think of security everywhere, left, middle, right. Think of security shift everywhere, right? By shift means shift the focus of security in the development pipeline, everywhere in the development pipeline. Having security in the early phases of software development reduces cost, right? Just think of an example. If you're not considering security early, you deploy your software and your software get hacked. What happens? If you're a big bank, you're a hospital, you're a federal government agency, you're going to end up in the front page of big newspaper. There's a lot of cost associating with that. Dealing with it's a public relationing nightmare. Fixing those, you may lose your customers. Think of LastPass. LastPass is a company that helps you to secure your passwords. They ask you, you can just have multiple passwords. All you remember is one password to access your other passwords. What happened in 2022? LastPass got hacked. So what happens? They lost customers. There was a huge cost that they have to bear in terms of losing their customer that were using that product, because now customers don't trust LastPass because they were giving them their passwords, storing them passwords, and LastPass was unable to secure their customer passwords. So cost in terms of there are various aspects of cost, right? The overall reduction of intrinsic business risk to organization. So if you think of security from shift left or shift everywhere approach, you reduce business risk for the organization, as I just gave you an example of LastPass. These are existential risks to the business. So the things that we looked at in the previous slide, where you looked at the SDLC and you looked at various elements of software development, their code, security, and so now we look at the details. Let's zoom into in each and every aspect of security and see what activities that get performed or in the SDLC when you're designing and you're writing secure software. So let's talk about code review. So code review is a practice where when developers are writing code and they are checking into repositories like GitHub or Bitbucket, anybody is scanning the code, anybody is reviewing the code. So that is the whole purpose of this activity. You have automated tools in the pipeline, tools like Zap Proxy, tools like Burp Suite. There are other companies that are, Veracode, Synopsys. There are other companies that have written these tools that integrate into your development pipeline. And they are constantly scanning the code as developers are writing these codes. So there are two ways a code review works. Again, thinking from the shift left approach, SonarQube, I'm sure you, if you're a software developer, you have heard of this software tool called SonarQube that has plugins that get into developers' IDE, right? As developers are writing the code, SonarQube intelligently looking at the code and reporting developer that, hey, these are the things that I'm seeing in your code, and these are the things I recommend that you change from the security perspective. And then as the code leaves the developer IDE and code get committed into the repository, another code scan or SAS tool, which is static analysis security tools, runs on that code to find for common vulnerabilities, right? Although code review is absolutely necessary, but it's somewhat insufficient practice for achieving secure software. What does that mean is that if you have a development pipeline, you're developing a software house, you're developing a software for your client, and you say, yes, we have tools in our pipeline that scans for vulnerabilities in our code, we are good to go. No, that's not sufficient. That is one part of the security activity. There are other activities that needs to perform to make sure that you have covered everything when you're writing a secure code, right? So a best secure code review can only uncover 50% of the issues in the source code. What is the comprehensive approach to software security? It involves holistically combining both code review and architectural analysis, right? So you do code reviews and then you risk analysis and you do architectural analysis of your software. Another key important thing that we have seen with the organizations as they're writing their software is that training of developers. They hire developers and developers are very good in writing their codes, but they're not good in writing secure codes. And developers are not security conscious people. The focus of developer is to write code that works. And that's the whole mindset, the whole mentality they have. So that's where organizations are spending more and more money in training their developers to write secure codes, making their developers security conscious. They send their developers to take OWASP training, understand how secure code works. And then what they're also doing is in the industry that they have this program called, it has different names, but the most common name is, they call it security champions. So I was working for a pharmaceutical, consulting with a pharmaceutical company, and they have about 5,000 developers under one roof. And they're all those developers working on different products, different projects for that pharmaceutical company. And what they have done is that as developers, they have selected, depending upon the size of the team, they have selected developers who have security mindset. And what those developers are doing is that within their team, they are providing security consultancy to other developers. They are reviewing their codes. They are talking about writing secure codes. They are thinking about how a hacker can attack their codes. So security champion is an embedded actor or embedded coder within the development groups who is working with other developers to make sure that they are writing secure codes and providing them training within their groups. Architectural risk analysis. So as we talked about, that just writing a secure code or just writing or just having SaaS tools and DaaS tools in your environment is not enough. You have to perform other security activities to make sure you're writing a good secure software. And one of that critical activity is architectural risk analysis, or we call it ARA. So ARA it's a design review that enables the determination of system adherence to secure design principles. And what are the secure design principles? You have enabled cryptography in your software. You have proper authentication mechanism in place, access control mechanism in place. Those are secure design principles. And then you address any of your client security requirements based on their maybe legal requirements or regulatory requirements that needs to build into their software. So those are the secure design principles. So what does our ARA achieves? It achieves if there's a poor compartmentalization and protection of critical data. Failure of web service to authenticate, calling code and its user to make access control decisions based on. So there are different scenarios that that we looked at when we perform ARA on a piece of software. So we look at impact, we look at likelihood, we look at control, we look at prevention, we look at mitigation. All of these 5 factors get looked at by a security architecture with the help of developers, with the help of QA, with the help of product engineers to make sure that the software is written and it is working as intended, and it is protecting itself against malicious actors. So that's the whole purpose of architectural risk analysis of a software. Penetration testing, we talked about, this is an activity that happens towards in the right of the secure SDLC process. SAST is more of a left activity within the development pipeline. Penetration testing is more of a right side of activity, where application is in production, where it is in operation or maybe in test environment, where companies hire external penetration testers, application penetration testers, who are testing applications as it is running in the environment and finding issues within the environment. So you have SaaS tools that look at the code, and there you have penetration tester or DAS tools employed by penetration testers that look at the application while it is running and try to hack into the application at that point. So they do not have access to the code, but do have access to the running application. And that's another area where they look at the application, the simulate attack as an adversary. So activities like reconnaissance, scanning, gaining access, and maintaining access of the software, the most common activities or most common steps taken by penetration testers. Risk-based security testing. So again, this is kind of tied to ARA activity that we talked about. So testing of security functionality with standard function testing and techniques, risk-based security testing based on attack patterns. There are different attack patterns that attackers or testers can apply to a software to determine where the vulnerable points of software are. So there is a understanding, and this is something that we have worked with our clients in reality. So when we go to our clients, we say, how do you test your software? So the most of the time we got the answer that, yeah, we have quality assurance testing in our, when the software is built, we have this QA department, we have this QA testers who actually look at the quality of the software and we test the software. That is the wrong answer, So quality assurance is about making sure good things happen. What it means is that quality assurance means a software is working as intended, not that how will software behave if a malicious attacker, if a malicious adversary is attacking your software. So QA is about making sure good things happen, software is working as intended. Security testing is about making sure bad things don't happen. So that is a very key difference between QA testing and the security testing of your software. So we need to consider those things. And I would say about 99% of the time when I talk to my clients, I get this answer, oh yeah, we are doing QA testing, we are good to go. No, you are not. Are you doing security testing? No. Why? So that's where we engage with clients and develop these practices and of secure SDLC in their environment. So with the risk-based security testing, you have guided security testing with knowledge of software architecture, common attacks, and attacker mindset is extremely important. And all of these things do not happen in QA testing. However, these things do happen when you're doing a security testing of the software. Then you have, abuse case. Abuse cases, again, are part of design process. What are abuse case in a software? So it's a way to use feature that was not expected by the implementer, which allows an attacker to influence the feature of outcome of use of feature-based attack on attacker action or input. So one example of an abuse case would be buffer overflow, right? You write something, but you have not tested for buffer overflow. So buffer overflow can be considered as an abuse case where you are sending bunch of text to overflow the memory of computer and software crashes, right? So that's an example of abuse case. So building abuse case is a great way to get into the mindset of attackers. And again, these are the things that develop during security testing, but not during the QA process. Abuse case describes system behavior under attack. So building abuse case requires explicit coverage of what should be protected, from whom, and for how long. So a lot of security architects in an organization, they think about this thing. They look at the business requirement of the software. They look at the technology that is being used to develop that software and develop abuse cases. And if you want to look at various abuse cases for your organization instead of writing something from scratch, I have shared a link over here. You can use and go over here and look at various abuse cases that are provided by OVAS that you can use today in your development environment. So another key function is obviously security operations. We talked about software development. Now, security operations is also a key factor in securing an environment, whether it be a development environment of software or the operation environment of software. So that's where you have heard this term DevOps, and then you have DevSecOps. So DevOps is development and operations. And then when you have security layer on top of DevOps, that becomes your DevSecOps, development, security, and operations. So in a cloud environment, as a lot of my clients are using cloud to develop their software, so security is a key principle on how they are developing their pipelines, how they are writing infrastructure, provisioning their infrastructure using infrastructure as a code, how their CI/CD pipeline is set up. All those things are now very security conscious, because hardware is nobody uses physical hardware anymore. Everybody is using virtualized hardware in cloud environment, and that hardware gets provisioned using software, infrastructure as code, Terraform or other infrastructure as a code languages that are out there. So we need to make sure those are also secure, those are provisioned securely, and so that applications on those infrastructures run securely. So as we talked about DevSecOps, so this is another layer on top of that secure SDLC. Again, we talked about shift left approach with the integration of security tool in the CI/CD pipeline. So this kind of ties everything together. Software security must be integrated in the pipeline and should not be an outside function. What does that mean is a lot of organizations have security as an outside function from the development function. And that usually resulted in, okay, we have developed the software, now we're gonna call in security people and they come in and do a penetration testing and we are good to go. And that's absolutely a no-no in modern development work. Security should be part of the development pipeline. Security tools must align with language, framework, and APIs. That is a given. And if you're writing a software in C++, you cannot have security tools that do not support C++ language. So that's basically what it's trying to say over here. So quickly at the bottom, this is how the flow works, right? So you have developer IDE, as I talked about. IDE is integrated development environment, like your Visual Studio or Eclipse or whatever you are using. So even at the developer's IDE level, you perform lightweight SAST and lightweight software composition analysis. And then from developer IDE, code moves into, developer commits the code into a GitHub repository, right? Once the code gets committed, you perform incremental SAST and enhanced SCA. As the code continues to integrate, it goes into the build stage, where you perform more SAST and you perform standardized software composition analysis. And then from build phase, code goes into the test phase. That's where it's a continuous delivery and deployment start to happen. In the test phase, you perform SAST and you perform passive scan and customized SAST and DAST activity. Then code goes into the deployment. That's where you perform full scan with SAST and DAST. And by scan mean, running tools that scan the application in running phase, right? And then finally, code goes into the production application is running. And then you're continuously performing penetration testing, vulnerability scans, threat intelligence, bug bounty. So all the things we talked about previously, you can see they all come together in this conceptual pipeline that you can see on the screen over here. And that's what a secure CI/CD pipeline built upon a secure SDLC looks like. So you have continuous integration, CI, and continuous delivery and deployment, CID. So hence CI/CD pipeline. But again, it's built upon that SDLC framework. So I've talked about Shift Everywhere earlier in this stage. So Shift Left was a 15-year-old thing. It's nothing new. Shift Everywhere has extended the trend into automated continuous testing throughout the software lifecycle. So Shift Everywhere approach is used for more than just testing of vulnerabilities in timely fashion. It facilitates automating governance checks and measure risk in various parts of software lifecycle. Shifting might entail using automated testing continuously to verify that only APIs with proper documentation allow us to receive certain traffic. So again, Shift Everywhere when it comes to security. If you never heard of BSIM, BSIM is Build Security in Maturity Model. This is something that at my last job, this is the process, this is the BSIM was owned by that company, and I was involved in performing and conducting BSIMs for many organizations at my last job. So that company, Synopsys, holds data of BSIM for past 10 years. And we have engaged with those organizations in those 10 years to understand how their software development process has matured over time. And these are the trends for last 10 years for the same organizations, same verticals this is BSIM 13 iteration. It started from BSIM 1. And before that, it was called OpenSAM or OWASP SAM, but Synopsys kind of commercialize it and create data points out of it to look at how organizations are developing their software and how they're maturing their software development programs, right? So as we can see that in the last 10 years, a lot of things have improved. Implement security checkpoints, ensure host and network security plays, identify privacy obligation, create interface, incident response, external penetration testing. Again, these are the activities that we just talked about. And you can see how those things have improved now over time within the last 10 years with the organizations that we have engaged with and see how they are improving over time. So final thoughts is in developing in the secure software, ensure that you have automated software security tools in place, as we have seen, use data to drive security questions. Metrics is a very important point, and that what BSIM provides. It provides metrics. It provides hard numbers as how organizations are doing in improving their software development processes and maturing those processes. And once you have those hard numbers, only then you can make changes. And example of hard numbers are how your vulnerabilities are reducing over time. This is one example. How much developers you are training to write secure software, right? So you capture that information. Move towards automating security testing and decision making. Automate your CI/CD pipeline. Do not do manual work. Automation means fast. Automation means you get data. Automation means you got streamlined. So, and you get better decision making when you implement security as an automated piece in your development pipeline. And move to smaller automated checks, SAS, DAT, FCA, we talked about. And the last is no security without an organizational security program. I understand a lot of organizations have done that. They're developing a software product, and then there is a business case that, hey, we need to move this product, we need to move this feature quickly to our clients so that they can make money. Why people are writing software? Because they want to make money. Software is a product. So if you do not have a security program, you cannot capture what your security program looks like. You cannot make improvements without a security program. You just cannot rely on one developer or multiple developers to write. You have to have guardrails in your organization. And those guardrails comes through a security program. So if you are interested in looking at how to develop a program, how to assess your software development program, I actually did a YouTube video using OpenSAM. OpenSAM is an open source version of BSIM that I just showed you. you can actually use OpenSAM to assess your organization, assess your software house, or assess if you have in-house development, to assess how your organization or how your software house is doing when it comes to writing secure software, and where you are in terms of your maturity and what steps you can take to improve the overall security of your or maturity of your software program. So this is a YouTube link. Anybody can go and watch that video if you choose to do so. I think that's all I have. Any questions? We are on time.
The questions we already have a hand raised. Ghulam Murtaza Abru.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. बहुत ही इंटरेस्टेड सेशन था, जिस तरह पहले भी हमने अटेंड किया था, इसी तरह ये भी बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सेशन था। इसमें सर मैं ये कुछ 5-6 सवालात हैं सर से। जो सबसे पहला जो सवाल मेरा वो ये था, जब सर ने बात की टेस्ला की बात की, लेकिन टेस्ला तो एक इंटरनेट के साथ कनेक्टेड है, देन उसमें पॉसिबिलिटी होती है कि कोई हैक होने का खतरा होता है, जिसकी वजह से नुकसान होता है, पैसेंजर को नुकसान होता है, या वो जो भी बंदा ड्राइव कर रहा है उसकी पूरी गाड़ी उसके हाथ में चली जाती है। लेकिन जो हमारी ऑफलाइन हमारी जो गाड़ियां चलती हैं, देखिए इसके अंदर भी तो सॉफ्टवेयर बिल्ट इन होता है, हर गाड़ी के अंदर एक कंप्यूटर का एक सॉफ्टवेयर बिल्ट इन होता है। तो उसके अंदर कौन सी वल्नरेबिलिटी पॉसिबल हो सकती है कि मिस्त्री के हैंड्स पे, या वैसे वल्नरेबिलिटी पॉसिबल, अभी लाइक सपोज मेरे पास हाइब्रिड गाड़ी है, मैं जाता हूँ किसी मैकेनिक के पास, मैं उसको कहता हूँ इसको डायग्नोज करो, इसके अंदर वो अपने कंप्यूटर लगा कुछ कोड लगाता है, देन वो कहता है कि इसमें ये सेंसर के इश्यूज हैं, ये इश्यूज हैं। लाइक सपोज अगर वो कोई ऐसा उसके अंदर बग डाल देता है या कोई इस तरह का फ्लो डाल देता है, मैं उसको डायग्नोज किस तरह कर सकता हूँ? इसके लिए कोई प्रिविलेजेस है या कोई इस तरह के इंतजामात हैं? नंबर 1। नंबर 2, सर ने बात की सॉफ्टवेयर हाउसेस, सॉफ्टवेयर के अंदर कुछ और जो हमारे डेवलपर बेस पे होते हैं, जो डेवलप करते हैं। देखिए एक बंदा है वो साइबर सिक्योरिटी से रिलेटेड नहीं है, ठीक है, और वो अपने आप को फुल स्टैक डेवलपर कहता है। लेकिन साइबर सिक्योरिटी को उसको अलिफ बे का नहीं पता, फिर बिल्ड करके दे देता है, ठीक होगी। लाइक सपोज वो अपने चार्ज कर लेता है, 15 से 20 लाख चार्ज भी कर लेता है। अब अगले बंदे ने सॉफ्टवेयर बिल्ड करवा लिया ना, उसके पास क्यूए वाला बंदा है कोई साइबर सिक्योरिटी का, ना इसके पास कोई और साइबर सिक्योरिटी की टीम है, तो वो किस तरह अपने आप को देख सकता है इसको बचने के लिए? और ये सर इस पे थोड़ा सा कमेंट्स कर दें। थैंक यू सो मच।
हाँ जी, जो पहला आपका सवाल है, जो पुरानी गाड़ियां थी जो 2000 आई थिंक 6 स्पेसिफिक ईयर, जिसके बाद वो ODB2 कनेक्टर आ गया था गाड़ियों के अंदर, जिसमें आप कंप्यूटर लगा के तो गाड़ी को आप डायग्नोस कर सकते हैं। तो उन गाड़ियों को हैक करना, या हमारी जो आम गाड़ियां जिसके अंदर ODB2 कनेक्टर इतना आसान नहीं है, ऑल्दो दे हैव दिस ECU कंट्रोल यूनिट, तो कैन बस्ट होता है, इट कैन बी हैक, बट इट रिक्वायर्स अ लॉट ऑफ नॉलेज। सो मेरा नहीं ख्याल कि एक आम मैकेनिक जो गाड़ी का है, ही इज वेल अवेयर कि वो चीज़ें कैसे काम करती हैं। ऑल्दो अगर आप YouTube पे सर्च करें तो कुछ साल पहले यहाँ पे लास वेगस में कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी, जहाँ पे एक बंदे ने कैन बस के थ्रू, जो गाड़ी का नेटवर्क है उसको कैन बस कहते हैं, उसके थ्रू गाड़ी को हैक किया था, बट चांसेस आर वेरी 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 लो, राइट? But cars like Tesla, they have a much higher chance of getting hacked if the software is not designed properly. यहाँ पे कई लोग हैं जिनके वो सुबह गाड़ी में बैठे हैं, गाड़ी में उन्होंने गाड़ी स्टार्ट की, गाड़ी स्टार्ट नहीं हुई है, क्यों? कि वो टेस्ला जो है वो नई सॉफ्टवेयर अपडेट भेज रहे हैं गाड़ी के अंदर। So until or unless that software upgrade happens, only then car will work. So these are the type of things that happen. दूसरा सवाल ये है कि आपके अगर एक डेवलपर है, वो अपने आपको फुल स्टैक डेवलपर कहते हैं, सॉफ्टवेयर बना दिया है, he doesn't understand, उसको सिक्योरिटी का नहीं पता, तो वो अब जो क्लाइंट है ये उसकी बदकिस्मती है। हाँ, अगर क्लाइंट जो है वो खुद से कॉन्शियस है और वो चीज़ डेवलप कर रहा है, अपनी उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट्स है सिक्योरिटी की, उसको पता है कि उसको ये चीज़ें सिक्योर चाहिए, तो देन क्लाइंट को बजाय सस्ते डेवलपर के पास जाने के, ऐसी कंपनी के पास जाना चाहिए जो कि सिक्योरिटी कॉन्शियस है और जो कि इन चीज़ों का ख्याल रख सकती है। तो ये चीज़ें जो हैं बड़ी सब्जेक्टिव हैं, you have to think about, you have to plan about these things.
अच्छा सर, इसमें देखें जो एंड यूजर है उसको नहीं पता, सिक्योरिटी कंसर्न उसका नहीं है। लाइक सपोज अभी एक जो एंड यूजर है उससे सिक्योरिटी कंसर्न नहीं, वो बोलता है मेरा काम चले, मतलब मैं जो चीज मतलब ईआरपी, लाइक सपोज मैं ईआरपी डेवलप करवा रहा हूँ, ठीक है, वो बोलता है मेरा ईआरपी चल रहा है, दैट्स ओके। तो मुझे नहीं पता कि अगर मैंने, अच्छा एक और चीज यहाँ पे आ जाती है, जो डेवलपर बोलता है कि मैंने आपको एसएसएल लेके दिया है, जब एसएसएल लगा दिया तो वो बोलता है तो इस मीन्स कि मेरा जो भी सॉफ्टवेयर वो तो सिक्योर है, जो भी फ्लॉ आएगा वो तो कंपनी जो पॉलिसीज हैं ही इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल। तो इस पे आप क्या कहें?
आई
And ये
थिंक मैं
जी
थोड़ा सा इंटरवीन करूंगा रेहान भाई यहाँ पे। ऑल रिस्पेक्टेड मेंबर्स, काइंडली आप जो क्वेश्चंस कर रहे हैं ना वो थोड़ा सा आप रिलेट करें टॉपिक के साथ, क्योंकि काफी सारे लोगों ने हैंड रेज किए हुए हैं एंड वी डोंट हैव इनफ टाइम कि हम
कहना चाहेंगे
किसी
सर?
बिजनेस डिस्कशन में पढ़ें। तो आई रिक्वेस्ट
सर मैं
मॉडरेटर।
सॉफ्टवेयर की बात कर रहा हूँ सर, यहाँ पे मेरा रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन नहीं है, मेरा सॉफ्टवेयर रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन है। लाइक सपोज देखें कि हमने एसएसएल ले दिया है, तो वो तो जो डेवलपर है, देखिए कोड्स की बात हो रही है, एक बंदा अपने कोड को सिक्योर कर रहा है, वो बोलता है कि जब मैंने एसएसएल ले लिया है, जहाँ पे मेरा कोड रखा हुआ है, सोर्स कोड रखा हुआ है, इट्स मीन कि वो मेरी जगह सेव है। तो वो जो कंपनी है या जो भी आपके सास प्रोवाइडर हैं, अगर हम वहां पे अपना सॉफ्टवेयर का कोड रख देते हैं, इट्स मीन कि वो रिस्पॉन्सिबल हैं तो हमारे कोड के जो भी इसके अंदर
नहीं नहीं,
चीजें हैं।
यहाँ पे जो है गुलाम थोड़ा सा ना अंडरस्टैंडिंग का इशू है। देखिए बिजनेस इज समथिंग डिफरेंट और सर्विस प्रोविजन इज समथिंग डिफरेंट ना। एसएसएल जस्ट मेक श्योर कि आपकी एंड टू एंड जो डेटा ट्रांसफर हो रहा है ना वो इनक्रिप्टेड फॉर्म में होता है, उसका जो है वो कोड के सिक्योर होने से कोई ताल्लुक नहीं होता, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग। तो मेरा ख्याल है जैन थोड़ा सा आप आगे बढ़ाएं, क्योंकि काफी सारे लोग क्यू में लगे हुए हैं एंड वी हैव
ठीक है,
वेरी शॉर्ट।
ठीक है, बिल्कुल। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन उस्मान रियाज साहब का है, विल प्रोसीड विद दैट।
थैंक यू जी, थैंक यू। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई वुड लाइक टू अप्रिशिएट रेहान साहब, आपकी ये प्रेजेंटेशन बहुत अच्छी थी। माय नेम इज उस्मान रियाज एंड आई एम फ्रॉम क्योरएमडी। आई एम मैनेजिंग एप्लीकेशन सिक्योरिटी डिपार्टमेंट इन क्योरएमडी। वी आर डीलिंग इन हेल्थ केयर प्रोडक्ट है बेसिकली जिसमें हम काम कर रहे हैं। सो माय क्वेश्चन इज रिलेटेड टू द सिक्योर सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट लाइफ साइकिल। एक्चुअली वी आर ट्राइंग टू इसको अडॉप्ट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। उसमें दो टर्म्स थी, एक आपने बोली अब्यूज केस एंड द अदर वन वाज थ्रेट मॉडलिंग। सो माय क्वेश्चन इज, हमें जो सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज फेस होता है अब्यूज केस के, हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल to write down these abuse cases? Like either the product team, should we make them enable so that obviously they can have those skill set and the capabilities to write down those abuse cases, या अगेन जिस तरह आपने मेंशन किया कि शायद ये सिक्योरिटी स्पेशलिस्ट ही होंगे जो इनकी जॉब डिस्क्रिप्शन थोड़ी सी डिफरेंट होगी और फिर वो इस तरीके से इसको इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकते हैं। दिस वाज द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज रिलेटेड टू थ्रेट मॉडलिंग। एक टर्म है थ्रेट मॉडलिंग जिसे हम कहते हैं, जो हमारी बेसिकली शायद आर्किटेक्चर एंड डिजाइन लेवल के ऊपर आती है। सो आई एम नॉट वेल फेमिलियर विद इट क्योंकि मुझे इस पे थोड़ी सी कंफ्यूजन हैं। इस थ्रेट मॉडलिंग को कहाँ पर करना चाहिए, किसको करना चाहिए, और इसके लिए क्या टेक्निक्स एंड स्ट्रैटेजीज हो सकती हैं? थैंक यू।
तो आपका जो पहला क्वेश्चन है कि अब्यूज केस कौन लिखेगा, तो वो उसके अंदर इट्स अ सॉल्यूशन आर्किटेक्ट यूजुअली राइट दोस अब्यूज केसेस। अगर आपकी टीम में सिक्योरिटी पर्सनल है, दे हेल्प डेवलपर्स टू टॉक अबाउट दोस अब्यूज केसेस एंड राइट दोस अब्यूज केसेस। मगर ये कि आपको चीज़ें जो है ना रीइन्वेंट करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। OWASP के ऊपर मैंने जो लिंक शेयर किया है, there are a lot of abuse cases that are already written and you can reuse that abuse cases in your environment, क्योंकि ये चीज़ें अब नई नहीं रही हैं, ये चीज़ें लोगों ने कर ली हुई हैं, ये चीज़ें टेस्ट हो चुकी हैं। तो you can take that information and apply to your organization and apply to your development process and use them. So make sure the developers are aware of it. Make sure your security people are aware of it. If you have a software security personnel or security personnel who is familiar with SaaS tools and DAS tools and security composition analysis tool. So those are the people that help you then test those abuse cases, right? So you can go to OWASP website, type OWASP abuse case cheat sheet, and you can go there and you can see all the abuse cases that are available. And communicate that with them.
Yes. It means abuse case जो है वो आपका उस use case के साथ directly coupled नहीं होगा. That will be a generalized. उसको generalize ही रख.
Exactly. So use case जो है what QA does, right? QA आपका देखता है कि आपका सॉफ्टवेयर प्रॉपरली काम कर रहा है, जिस पर्पस के लिए वो डिजाइन हुआ है, जो उसका यूज है वो प्रॉपर काम कर रहा है। अब्यूज केस है वो ऑपोजिट है, वो QA नहीं टेस्ट करेगा, वो सिक्योरिटी जो है वो टेस्ट करेगी because they have a different mindset. So they will throw everything bad to your software in case of abuse case and see how software reacts. Right?
That's good. Thank you so much. And what about threat modeling, sir? Threat modeling कब करेंगे?
हाँ, threat modeling जो है again उसके लिए आपको specialized skill चाहिए, हर बंदा नहीं कर सकता. I mean in our organization we have solution architects, we have our engineers who does this threat modeling, and we have a risk personnel. Usually our organization is not a one-person job. It's usually 3 or 4 people who actually come together. उसमें product manager होता है, product owner होता है, business analyst होता है, उसमें developer का representative होता है, solution architect होता है. They all work together to write, to understand the application and then do an ARA. It's not a one-person job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I hope it answers your questions, Usman. Mazum साहब, आपका question को क्या है?
Thank you very much for this amazing section. I just have a quick question. So, what are can you name some certifications or training programs for like a senior role, senior/solution architect role? Can you please list them out?
OWASP has quite a few courses. अगर आप OWASP की website पे जाएं, तो they offer some trainings. There are trainings. As such, मुझे कोई well-known certifications तो नहीं पता जो solution architect या security architect कर सके. Usually they are very customized. Like for example, जिस company में था पहले Synopsys, we provide customized trainings to developers and to solution architects to think about security in the pipeline. I'm not very well aware कि इस तरह कोई Cisco type या Microsoft type कोई certification शायद available है. However, developers के लिए we used to conduct OWASP top 10 training, जिसमें हम उनको ये सारे जो मैंने आपको ये चीजें दिखाई थी, the top 10 most, इसके ऊपर उनको training दी जाती है और कैसे developers जो हैं वो चीजें consider करें when they're writing the code. So, but there are trainings available outside.
Mazum साहब, there are some suggestions in the chat as well, अगर आप उनको भी refer करना चाहें.
I just want to add one-liner description. कि Mazum, you can also see EC Council. EC Council की जो certifications की जो directory है, उसमें आप चेक कीजिएगा, वहां पे आपको सिक्योर सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट की सर्टिफिकेशन मिलेगी है.
Can you spell it out?
Excuse me?
Can you spell it out? EC Council.
E for England, C for cure, dash, council, COUNCIL.
Thank you.
ये बड़ा इनकी एक बड़ी पॉपुलर सर्टिफिकेशन है, सर्टिफाइड एथिकल हैकर की ना.
सही है.
हो गया.
और दूसरी जो है
ये CS से
दूसरी और है. Sorry, go ahead please.
ठीक है, ये CEH से मशहूर है. इन्हीं की प्रोडक्ट लाइन में आप देखिएगा सिक्योर सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट की आपको एक सर्टिफिकेशन मिलेगी. तो यू कैन रेफर टू दैट सर्टिफिकेशन एज वेल. और फिर उसके कंपैरिजन में आप मुख्तलिफ जो वेंडर्स इस वक्त मार्केट में मौजूद हैं सिक्योरिटी के, तो उनको आप चेक कर सकते हैं कि कौन लोग जो हैं वो सिक्योर सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट की जो है वो आपको सर्टिफिकेशंस प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं. दैट्स फॉर मी.
एक और मैंने लिंक पोस्ट किया जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन CISSP करवाती है ISC Square, they have a certification as well. It's called CSSLP, which is a secure software development certification. I posted the link in the chat.
Perfect. बिल्कुल ठीक हो गया. We'll move on to the next question. Mohammed Kazim. Kazim, can you hear us? आप muted हैं.
Audible? Hello.
Yes.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम रेहान सर, कैसे हैं आप? मैंने बेसिकली आपका जिस पे जो आपका सेम का है ना OSM का, वही मैंने वेबिनार देखा था. सर मेरे OSM से एलिमेंट 2 क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं। एक तो सर जैसे हम बेसिकली SSDLC को हम इनकॉर्पोरेट करने लगे ना अपने करंट SDLC मॉडल में, तो हमने OSM को एज अ बेंचमार्क फ्रेमवर्क हमने यूटिलाइजेशन करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि हम इसको फॉलो करते हुए उसके मेच्योरिटी लेवल 1 को फॉलो करते हुए हम अपना SSDLC क्रिएट करें। सर इसको इफेक्टिवली हम कैसे इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकते हैं, आपके एक्सपीरियंस ऐसे अगर आप कुछ शेयर कर सकें तो। और दूसरी चीज़ मेरी ये है पूछनी है कि सर इसमें बेसिकली 2 स्ट्रीम्स होती हैं। मैंने इसकी बेसिकली नोट्स को ही पढ़ा है और वहाँ पे मुझे यही सिर्फ मालूम हुआ है कि स्ट्रीम इज़ जस्ट द वे दे आर सेपरेटिंग द 2 डिफरेंट एक्टिविटीज़ ऑफ वन प्रैक्टिस। तो इसके ऊपर अगर आप कुछ बता सकें कि ये इनका बेसिकली पर्पस क्या है स्ट्रीम्स को बनाने का, और इज़ इट ओके कि यू गो विद स्ट्रीम बोथ स्ट्रीम्स एंड बी और यू पिक ऑन एनी वन स्ट्रीम इन ईच प्रैक्टिस।
देखिए जो ओपन सैम है ना, it's a different discussion जो आपने सॉल्व किया, it requires another whole thing। मगर बेसिक बात जो है वो इसकी है कि ओपन सैम टाइप मॉडल जो है ना, ये आपको हेल्प करते हैं असेस करने में कि आपका जो सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस है वो कितना मैच्योर है, नंबर 1। फिर उसमें गैप्स कहाँ कहाँ पे, ठीक है। इट्स अ वेरी approach that it requires interviewing, that requires interviewing the developers and all the stakeholders in your organization and understanding of your requirements. So once you do that, you identify the gaps कि आपके program में gaps कहाँ पे हैं. Then you take those gaps and then you prioritize कि आपने क्या चीज़ सबसे पहले उसमें से improve करनी है. And then you do it slowly. You cannot implement everything at once. बड़ी से बड़ी organization भी जो है ना, जो अपने software security processes mature करती है, तो वो सारी चीज़ें एकदम से नहीं कर सकती. It's very expensive. It's very time consuming. तो जब हम उनकी एनालिसिस करते हैं, उनको हम एक रोड मैप देते हैं। उस रोड मैप की बेस के ऊपर वो प्रायोरिटाइज करके चंद चीज़ों को फिर वो टाइमलाइन डिफाइन करते हैं, भाई 6 महीने में हमने ये करना है, 1 साल में हमने ये करना है। तो so that's how it works. You just cannot take the model like OpenSAM or BSIM and implement overnight. So we can have that conversation later on if you want to, but that requires a whole different understanding of things.
परफेक्ट, बिल्कुल ठीक हो गया। वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन, सहमत कमाल।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी। अच्छा, मेरा क्वेश्चन सर यहाँ से ये था, हमने सारी बातें कर ली कि हमने गैप्स ढूंढने हैं, हमने सब चीज़ें करनी है। इन शॉर्ट, क्योंकि आपको पता है कि मैन इन द मिडल अटैक और ये मेलवेयर और ड्राइव बाय डाउनलोड और DOS, ये सारी चीज़ें हो सकती हैं। अगर हो जाती हैं, सो व्हाट विल बी द फर्स्ट स्टेप? लाइक अब हो गई, ठीक है, हो गया, अब किया क्या जाए? मेरा बेसिक क्वेश्चन ये है कि जब होने के बाद पहला स्टेप क्या लिया जाए? सब सिस्टम डाउन कर दिए जाएं, चीजें ब्लॉक कर दी जाएं, बट हाउ वी कैन? जी, तो मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था बात का।
इंसिडेंट रिस्पांस, हाँ जी बोले
जी, सो मींस दैट कि पहला स्टेप क्या होना चाहिए? मुझे 1-2 टिप्स बता दें ताकि हम एज अ डेवलपर इस चीज को देखा करें कि यार अगर अटैक हो गया है, देखिए होना है ना, जैसे बुखार होता है, हो जाता है, उसके बाद उसको क्योर करना, उसके बाद उसकी मेडिकेशन लेना, वो हम पे होता है। सो माय क्वेश्चन इज दैट अब हो गया, सो पहला स्टेप क्या होना चाहिए? अटैक हो गया, व्हाट शुड आई डू नाउ?
देखिए, ये डेवलपर का काम नहीं है, इट्स अ टोटली डिफरेंट टॉपिक। इट्स व्हाट यू आर रेफरिंग टू एज इंसिडेंट रिस्पांस। अगर एक इंसिडेंट हो गया है तो हाउ एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन रिस्पॉन्ड टू दैट इंसिडेंट, एंड इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन, हाँ जी, इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन अ लॉट ऑफ फैक्टर्स कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन क्या है, क्या उसका स्टेक है, कितना रिस्क है। तो दैट्स अ होल सेपरेट डिस्कशन व्हाट हैपेंस आफ्टर एन इंसिडेंट हैपेंस। उसमें ये नहीं है कि एक डेवलपर उठ के जो है वो उसको हैंडल कर लेगा। दैट्स नॉट हाउ इट वर्क्स। इट रिक्वायर्स अ प्रॉपर प्लानिंग, इट रिक्वायर्स अ प्रॉपर प्रोसेस। आप सालाना टेबल टॉप एक्सरसाइज करते हैं, अपनी चीज़ों को देखते हैं, देन यू रिस्क एनालाइज एंड यू टेक एक्शंस बेस्ड ऑन दैट। So I think that's not the focus of this conversation. So that's a whole different topic.
BCP बनाना पड़ता है।
जी बिल्कुल।
बिल्कुल ठीक हो गया। I think we are done with the questions.
गुलाम मेरे पास और क्वेश्चन करना चाह रहे हैं।
अच्छा, गुलाम मतलब साहब, आपका आखिरी क्वेश्चन।
जी गुलाम, प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
जी थैंक यू सो मच। अच्छा सर, मुझे एक चीज मुझे बता दें सर, सिंपल, मैं ज़रा सवाल नहीं करूंगा कि मुझे एक सिंपल टिप्स बता दें एज एक डेवलपर है, वो किन चीजों को मतलब मद्देनजर रखे कि कम से कम साइबर अटैक हो जाए या उसके सॉफ्टवेयर के अंदर कोई कम से कम फ्लॉ आ जाए। एक दो टिप्स अगर बता दें। एक डेवलपर है, वो उसके बाद अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकता है, कोई एक साइबर सिक्योरिटी की टीम अरेंज करे या आर्किटेक्चर अरेंज करे या क्यूए अरेंज करे, तो उसको बेसिकली खुद के लिए कुछ टिप्स अगर बता दें डेवलपर के लिए सर, बेसिक टिप्स थोड़े से अगर।
हाँ जी, जो आपको स्क्रीन पे जो नजर आ रही है ना, 10 चीजें, 10 मोस्ट कॉमन सॉफ्टवेयर वल्नरेबिलिटीज, ये वो चीजें हैं जो कि डेवलपर को कंसिडर करनी चाहिए जब वो सॉफ्टवेयर को राइट कर रहा है। ठीक है, अगर आपका डेवलपर गूगल के ऊपर जाके ओवास 10 मोस्ट कॉमन सॉफ्टवेयर वल्नरेबिलिटी को सर्च करेगा तो ये लिस्ट आएगी उसके सामने, और इस लिस्ट के अंदर आप डिटेल में जाएंगे तो आपको वहां पे ये बताएगा कि इन चीजों को आपने कैसे अवॉइड करना है। उसके लिए एक डॉक्यूमेंट है, उसको कहते हैं ASVS OWASP, मैं उसका लिंक पोस्ट कर देता हूँ। ये जो डॉक्यूमेंट है इसके अंदर आपको काफ़ी कुछ बताया गया है कि एक आपने सॉफ्टवेयर को कैसे सिक्योरली लिखना है, क्या क्या चीज़ें कंसिडर करनी है। तो इसके लिए जो वो टिप्स आप मांग रहे हैं, टिप्स कोई नहीं होती हैं, यू हैव टू डू अ प्रॉपर understanding of development process, you have to have that. तो ये ASVS है, इसको देखिए और आपको काफी चीजें समझ आएंगी। तो मैंने लिंक पोस्ट कर दिया।
Wow, 3 more questions. Zen, do we have time? We
Yeah,
should
we're
ask
already 20 minutes
Rehan
ahead.
bhai first. I think Rehan bhai se hum consider kar lete hain if he has some time to give us.
Yeah, I have some time.
Okay, sure. So Zen जगह रिक्वेस्ट कीजिएगा कि बहुत कंसाइज और क्विक क्वेश्चन कर लेना।
ठीक हो गया। Not sure what their name is, but ये एक full stop डला हुआ है इनके नाम में। Can you please what is your question? आप हमें बता दें kindly. Responding, let's move on to the next one. IOMAX ये हमारी member company है। अगर आप अपना question कर लें, then we'll proceed towards the next person.
Okay, so I have a question. कि अगर आपने what do we mean by broken authentication? Like how can we identify कि we have a broken authentication? Like मेरे पास एक use case है कि आप पहले आप टोकन मंगवा रहे हो और फिर आप उस टोकन को यूज करके कोई वैलिडेशन वगैरह कर रहे हो। What if हैकर को वो फ्लो पता चल रहा है, तो फिर आप उसको किस तरीके से चेक कर सकते हैं कि, या आप उसके किस तरीके से आप उसको प्रोटेक्ट कर सकते हो?
देखिए, जो आपका ऑथेंटिकेशन का प्रोसेस है, बेसिकली व्हाट इट इज, इट्स अ प्रोसेस ऑफ वेरीफाइंग दैट एन इंडिविजुअल एंटिटी या कोई जो वेबसाइट है या कोई सर्विस है, they are who they are, what they are claiming, right? अब आप उसमें डिफरेंट मैकेनिज्म्स ऑथेंटिकेशन के यूज कर सकते हैं, मगर आपने उसको सिक्योर कैसे करना है? You can have SSL or TLS enable in your authentication mechanism. As the data is flowing, it is encrypted. So if somebody is trying to listening to that traffic, they should not be able to listen to. So that's a protection. Encryption is the mechanism that you can use to protect your authentication data that is going between your application, right? Second thing is कि आप जो अच्छी authentication use करें, do not use authentication that has mechanisms that has known vulnerabilities into them. Make sure your software is up to date. All the third-party components that you're using in software, they are not vulnerable. So there are different steps you can take कि आपका जो authentication process है stays secure and doesn't get compromised. अगर आप वो information clear text में भेज रही हैं, then obviously आपके tokens क्या, आपकी authentication information क्या, if anybody has access into that network traffic, they will be able to sniff that traffic and they will be able to get to that data. I mean, like take for example a website. If you do not have HTTPS in your website on your login page and you just have HTTP, and then anybody who is listening to that HTTP traffic will see the username and will see the tokens or will see the password that has been passed through between the web application and your web server. So employ encryption mechanisms, or which is called data in transit encryption in your application.
So basically हमें जो भी हम response या request जो information share कर रहे हैं, it should be encrypted.
Exactly. So दो किस्म की encryptions होती हैं, encryption in transit or encryption at rest. What you are talking about is encryption in transit. There's communication between two pieces of, server computers, client and software. So data is moving, data is in transit. You need to make sure it's encrypted. Data at storage is जहाँ पे आपका username और password जिस database में application में store हुआ हुआ है, that needs to be encrypted as well. कि अगर hacker जो है वो आपके infrastructure को उसने hack कर लिया, he has access into the environment, then he should not be able to see the username and passwords in clear text in the database.
I hope that answers your question. One last question, और ये full stop वाले जो भी company है इनकी तरफ से.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. So, as a security, I always follow the CIS benchmarks. So they will be updated on every year. So how I keep updated? Because every year they launch a 200 to 300 pages, and they have some changing in every page. So it's very difficult to update with the policy of new CIS benchmark.
The CIS benchmarks generally, they have nothing to do with software security, but those are compliance checks, right? They are mostly deployed in the production environment, in the operation. So जहाँ पे आपका software run कर रहा है, जो servers हैं, जो workstations हैं, that's where you apply CIS benchmarks. You do not have to update every time when the new CIS benchmark release. It's a risk-based decision. Organizations जो हैं वो हर ये चीज नहीं करते कि कोई नई चीज आई है तो they just deploy it, right? They have to make a risk-based decision. Some of the जो चीजें CIS benchmark में जो बताई जाती हैं, they may not apply to you. If you apply them, they may break your system, right? So you need to have a full understanding of how you are using certain technology in your environment. Again, CIS is not a software security thing. It's more of an operation, security policies that you test your system against.
Perfect. I hope
I hope you answered your question.
I hope that ठीक हो गया. Thank you everyone for joining. Azam bhai, if you have any closing remarks, the floor is open for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, Rehan sahab, that is really a very awesome session from your side, and we as a Pakistan software, बल्कि मैं तो rather than software मैं तो ये कहूँगा पाकिस्तान IT इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन और जो हमारे जिस्प के मेहमान हैं ग्लोबल इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी वाले, इन सब की तरफ से आई रियली अप्रिशिएट एंड वेरी थैंकफुल टू यू कि आपने जो है वो हमारे लिए टाइम निकाला और एक बहुत ही इंफॉर्मेटिव किस्म का जो है वो सेशन अरेंज किया. एंड आई रियली आई एम श्योर कि हमारे जितने भी ऑडियंसेस हैं दे रियली एंजॉयड इट, और जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन इस छोटे से प्लेटफॉर्म से हमने आपके साथ मिलके इनको प्रेजेंट करने की कोशिश की है वो इन तक डिलीवर हुई है और दे रियली लाइक इट. मेरी ख़ास तौर पे इस सेशन को लेके मैं आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल टू जैन एज वेल, जिसने सेक्रेटरीट की तरफ से इस पूरे सेशन को मॉडरेट किया, और साथ ही जो इनकी को होस्ट हैं आयशा आपका भी काम जो है वो बिल्कुल एक्नॉलेजेबल है यहाँ पे, और आपने जिस तरह से बिहाइंड द कर्टन जो है वो अपनी टीम के साथ मिलकर काम किया है उसके लिए आपके लिए भी जो है वो क्लैपिंग बनती है. इन दी एंड डेफिनेटली, क्योंकि पाशा की पूरी टीम, चाहे वो सोशल मीडिया टीम हो, चाहे वो मैनेजमेंट हो, चाहे वो मॉडरेशन साइड हो, आप लोगों ने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से इसको एग्जीक्यूट किया और रेहान साहब के साथ कोऑर्डिनेशन किया आपने. और मेरी ख्वाहिश है कि जिस तरह से हमने अभी सरानी साहब भी जो हमारे फर्स्ट एपिसोड के जो ट्रेनर थे वो भी यहाँ पे मौजूद थे. आई डोंट थिंक आई एम नॉट श्योर कि वो अभी मौजूद हैं या नहीं है, बट सेशन के दरमियान में मैंने देखा था कि वो यहाँ पे मौजूद थे. और मैं आपसे आयशा यही दरख्वास्त करूँगा कि ये जो हमारे इंडस्ट्री वेटरन्स हैं, जिसमें सुरानी साहब हो गए, रेहान बशीर साहब हो गए, और आगे भी कुछ लोग जो हैं। जी जी जी, सुरानी साहब देख लिया मैंने आपको, थैंक यू थैंक यू। तो ये हमारे इंडस्ट्री वेटरन्स यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं। हम चाहेंगे कि हम पाशा के प्लेटफॉर्म से जो है वो इनके साथ बड़े क्लोज लिंक्स जनरेट करके रखें, क्योंकि आने वाले टाइम में हमें और भी बहुत सी चीज़ों में इनकी रहनुमाई की ज़रूरत पड़ सकती है, जिसमें किसी सॉफ्टवेयर हाउस के कोई चैलेंजेस हैं, कोई हमारी पार्टनर कंपनी जो है वो इनसे कमर्शियल कंसल्टिंग जो है वो लेना चाह रही हो, या हमें कोई फ्यूचर में कुछ और ऐसे चैलेंजेस हो जो कि इनके डोमेन में फॉल करते हो, तो हम इनको दोबारा से जो है वो रीच आउट करके इस तरह के कुछ सेशन या क्लोज टॉक जो है वो अरेंज कर सकते हैं। साथ ही साथ जो हमारे दोस्त हैं बाप, जो इस इंडस्ट्री के जो पाकिस्तान से बाहर बैठे हुए हैं, उनको भी क्लोज लूप में लाना हमारे लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि पाशा के डेलीगेट जो हैं वो ऑलमोस्ट एवरी मंथ में एक दो डेलीगेट जो हैं वो पाकिस्तान से बाहर भी ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं। और अभी जून में बहुत से लोग जो हैं, जून एंड में बहुत से लोग अभी रिसेंटली जो है वो यूके जा रहे हैं, और उसके बाद जून एंड में जो है वो कोलेजन कनाडा अटेंड करने के लिए भी पाकिस्तान से जो है वो एक डेलीगेट जा रहा है, जिसमें से बहुत से लोग जो हैं वो फिर आगे यूएस को भी टच करके आएंगे। तो ऐसे में जो है वो रेहान साहब जैसे लोग और इनके सर्कल के जो लोग हैं, वो एक बड़ा पॉजिटिव रोल प्ले कर सकते हैं हमारी मेंबर कंपनीज के लिए, कि वो उनको वहाँ पे गाइड कर सकते हैं कल्चर के हवाले से, बिजनेस के हवाले से, अपॉर्चुनिटीज के हवाले से, एंड दे एक्चुअली प्ले ब्रिज रोल फॉर अस, कि हम पाकिस्तान की जो आईटी इंडस्ट्री है उसको बूस्ट कराने के लिए और पूरी अराउंड द ग्लोब जो है वो उसकी इंट्रोडक्शन के लिए, ये इस तरह के जैसे रेहान साहब हैं, इस तरह के जो हमारे एक्सपर्ट दोस्त हैं, ये लोग हमारे बेसिकली एसेट्स हैं, और इनका पाशा के साथ लिंक में रहना हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छा है और हमारे लिए बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट होगा। Once again, in final words, that episode is very awesome, and very thankful to Rehan साहब, जैन और आयशा और होल सेक्रेटरी जिसने इसको अरेंज किया। एंड आई होप कि हमारी ये टीम जो है वो इस पेस को कंटिन्यू करेगी, और हम इंशाल्लाह ताला जो है वो फ्यूचर में इस तरह के और अच्छे एपिसोड जो है वो अपने ऑडियंस और अपने मेंबर कंपनीज के लिए लेके आएंगे। मेरी तरफ से बहुत शुक्रिया आप सब लोगों का कि आप लोग सब लोग आए, or that's enough from my side. Thank you so much. Zen, over
Thank you
to you.
very much for inviting me as well, and thank you very much for everybody listening to me yapping.
Thank you, Rehan Saab. As I always say, let's use these opportunities to build a more secure and a secure future for all the generations that are here to come. Thank you, everyone. We'll be sharing the recording via email. Just जिसने register किया, they'll be receiving a link very soon. I'll be closing the meeting soon, and thank you once again for everyone for joining the session today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
God bless.
Allah Hafiz.